Hello everyone, welcome to the lesson 6 of this subject entitled The Teacher and the School Curriculum. Our talking points for this session will be the major foundations of curriculum. After this session, you will be able to describe the foundations of curriculum development, and you will be able to explain how each foundation influences the curriculum. Now, let's have the takeoff by means of describing what is curriculum development. So, curriculum development is anchored in a very solid foundation. Although considered to be new discipline, its significance in the light of global development has now been acknowledged. Let us find out what philosophical, historical, psychological, and sociological influences inform the current school curriculum, how these foundations reflect the development of curriculum in our 21st century classrooms and learning environment, and who are the identified curricularies with these foundations. Let's start the content focus. So the four major foundations of curriculum are philosophical, historical, psychological, and social. Let's start with the philosophical foundations. Philosophy provides educators, teachers, and curriculum makers with frameworks planning, implementing, and evaluating curriculum in schools. It helps in answering what schools are for, what subjects are important, how students should learn, and what materials and methods should be used. It has been said that the various activities in school are influenced in one way or another by a philosophy 𝑽𝑗. Influenced the use of learning by doing. He, being a pragmatist, or to an essentialist, the focus is on the fundamentals of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and the essential subjects in the curriculum. In decision-making, philosophy provides the starting point and will be used for the succeeding decision-making. The philosophy of the curriculum planner, implementer, or evaluator reflects his or her life experiences, common beliefs, social and economic background and education. There are four major educational philosophies, namely perennialism, essentialism, progressivism, and reconstructionism. Let's have perennialism. Person involved here is Plato, Aristotle, or Thomas Aquinas. Its aim is to educate the rational person and cultivate intellect. The role is teacher assists students to think with reason, or what we call critical thinking. Focus involves classical subjects, literary analysis, and curriculum in enduring. The trends here is use of great books, for instance Bible, Quran, classics, and liberal arts. Next is essentialism. Person involved here is William Bagley. Its aim is to promote intellectual growth of learners to become competent. The role here is teachers are sole authorities in the subject area. It focuses in essential skills of the 3 R's and essential subjects. The trends here are back to basics, excellence in education, and cultural literacy. Then we have progressivism. Person involved here is John Dewey. Its aim is to promote democratic social living. The role here is teacher leads for growth and development of lifelong learners. It focuses on interdisciplinary subjects, learner-centered, and outcomes-based. The trends here is equal opportunities for all, contextualized curriculum, and humanistic education. Then lastly, we have reconstructionism. person involved here is Theodore Bramelt. The aim here is to improve and reconstruct society and education for change. Its focus on present and future educational landscape. The role here is teacher acts as agent of change and reforms. The trends involve school and curriculum reform, global education, collaboration and convergence, standards and competencies. The second major foundation of curriculum is historical foundation. It will answer the question, where is curriculum development coming from? The historical foundations will show to us the chronological development along a timeline. As we go along with our discussion, we will know that curriculum development started when Franklin Babbitt wrote the book The Curriculum. Historical development also shows the different changes in the purposes, principles, and content of the curriculum. The different changes are influenced by educational philosophy, psychology, and pedagogical theories. This implies that curriculum is ever-changing, putting in knowledge and content from many fields of the discipline. There are 8 among the many whom we consider to have a great contributions, and let us see how each one contributed to curriculum development during his own time. We have Franklin Babbitt. He presented curriculum as a science that emphasizes on student needs. He also believed curriculum prepares for adult life. Next, we have Werith Charters. Like Babbitt, he considered curriculum as a science which is based on students' need and the teachers plan the activities. William Kilpatrick. He viewed curriculum as purposeful activities which are child-centered. He also believed the purpose of curriculum is child development and growth. Harold Rugg says, curriculum should develop the whole child. He emphasized social studies in curriculum and the teacher plans the lesson in advance. Hollis Caswell sees curriculum as organized around social function of teams, organized knowledge, and learners' interests. Ralph Tyler believes the curriculum is a science and an extension of school's philosophy. Hilda Taba helped lay the foundation for a diverse student population. Lastly, we have Peter Oliva. He described how curriculum change is cooperative endeavor, and according to him, significant improvement is achieved through group activity. Moving on, the third major foundation of curriculum is psychological foundation. Psychology provides a basis in teaching and learning process. It unifies the elements of the learning process and some of the questions which can be addressed by psychological foundations of education. There are 3 major groups of learning theory. The BCH, or B stands for behaviorist psychology, C for cognitive psychology, and H for humanistic psychology. Let's talk about behaviorist psychology. Learning should be organized in order that students can experience success in the process of mastering the subject matter. The method is introduced in a step-by-step manner, proper sequencing of tasks, which is viewed by the other educational psychologists as simplistic and mechanical. Behaviorist psychology includes the different theories of learning, namely connectionism by Edward Lee Thorndike, classical conditioning by Ivan Pavlov, Operant Conditioning by Boris Frederick or B.F. Skinner, Modeling and Observation Theory by Albert Bandura, and Hierarchical Learning by Robert Gagne. Next, we have Cognitive Psychology. Learning constitutes a logical method for organizing and interpreting learning. Teachers use a lot of problem and thinking skills in the teaching and learning process. These are exemplified by the practices like reflected learning, creative thinking, intuitive thinking, discovery learning, and many more. Like behavior psychology, cognitive psychology includes also the different theories of learning. And these are Cognitive Development Stage by John Piaget, Classical Conditioning by Lev Vygotsky, Multiple Intelligence by Howard Gardner, Learning Styles by Felder and Silberman, and Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. The third one is Humanistic Psychology. Humanist psychologists are concerned with how learners can develop their human potential. The process, not products, and personal needs, not subject matter. Just like the two major learning psychology, humanistic psychology has also its learning theories. And the first one is the Gestalt theory. According to this theory, learning is explained in terms of wholeness of the problem. It is also believed that human beings do not respond to isolated stimuli, but an organization or pattern of stimuli. Then we have the self-actualization theory, as well as the classic theory of human needs by Abraham Maslow. And lastly, we have the non-directive and therapeutic learning by Carl Rogers. To sum up, psychology has great influence in the curriculum. Learners are not machines, and the mind is not a computer. Humans are biological well-being affected by their biology and cultures. The psychological foundation will help curriculum makers in nurturing more advanced, more comprehensive, and complete human learning. And then the last major foundation of curriculum is the social foundation. Schools exist within the social context. Societal culture affects the shapes of schools and their curricula. In considering the social foundations of curriculum, we must recognize that schools are only one of the many institutions that educate society. The home, the family, the community likewise educate the people in the society. But schools are formal institutions that address more complex and interrelated societies and the world. Society, as ever dynamic, is a source of a very fast changes which are difficult to cope with and adjust to. Thus, schools are made to help to understand these changes. In order for schools to be relevant, schools' curricula should address diversity, explosion of knowledge, school reform, and education for all. The relationship of curriculum and society is mutual and encompassing. Hence, to be relevant, curricula should reflect and preserve the culture of society and its aspirations. At the same time, society should also imbibe the changes brought by formal institutions called the schools. Let's find out the theories involved here in social foundation. We have Emil Durkheim. He considered two fundamental elements which are schools and civil society. Alvin Toffler. He wrote the book Future Shock. He also believed that knowledge should prepare students for the future. Other theories involve Paulo Freire. He describes education as means of shaping the person and society through critical reflection and conscientization. Next, we have John Goodlad. According to him, curriculum should be organized around needs and society of the students. He also addressed the involvement of students in planning curriculum content and instructional activities. Lastly, we have William Pienaar. He broadened the conception of curriculum to enrich the practice. He also believed that curriculum should be studied from a historical, racial, gendered, phenomenological, postmodern, theological, and international perspective. Overall, schools and society is important. Thus, society is known as source of change. On the other hand, school and knowledge are known as agent of change. Again, the four major foundations of curriculum are philosophical, historical, psychological, and social. For my Take Action activity, I was assigned to choose two outstanding personalities in the cluster of Curriculum Foundation and research their biographies. There are four clusters. The Cluster 1 is the Philosophical Foundation, Cluster 2 is Historical Foundation, Cluster 3 is Psychological Foundation, and lastly, Cluster 4 is Social Foundation. For my Cluster 1, I chose William Bagley and John Dewey. So let's have the biography of William Bagley. William Bagley or William Chandler Bagley was born on March 15, 1874 in Detroit, Michigan and died in 1946 at the age of 72 in New York, 7 years after his retirement. He graduated from Michigan Agricultural College on 1895 with a bachelor's degree in scientific agriculture. He also studied learning theories at University of Chicago and completed his Master's of Education in 1898. On the other hand, he completed his doctorate in Education and Psychology in 1900 at Cornell University. He was a professor in psychology, pedagogy, and director of teaching training. His educational theories focus on the professional training of teachers with an ultimate aim that education be efficient so people become socially efficient individuals. Second one is John Dewey. John Dewey was born in Burlington, Vermont in 1859. He lived in a period of emigration and industrialization. That's why ethnic, social class, and religious diversity have influenced his views on education. He obtained a doctorate degree in 1884. He married Alice Chipman, which was one of his students. In 1896, he opened the laboratory school. He has his own view when it comes of education. His idea of education consisted in the interaction of students with the curriculum in order to make them part of their own knowledge. The teacher's role should be that of facilitator or guide. His theory was based on continuity and interaction. Some of his views also include the following: teacher as midwife, the emancipation and enlargement of experiences, critical, socially engaged intelligence, respect for diversity, standardization of education, and modern project method. Moving on to the second cluster, I chose Franklin Babbitt and Whereat Charters. Let's have first Franklin Babbitt biography. Franklin Babbitt or John Franklin Babbitt was born on January 1, 1876 and died on March 7, 1956 at the age of 80. He was an American educationist, a university professor, and a writer. A representative of the efficiency-minded thinkers, he is specialized in the field of curriculum. His parents were James and Martha Babbitt. From 1903 to 1907, he was a teacher at the Philippine Normal School in Manila. He went to the Philippines as part of a member of committee sent to draw up an elementary school curriculum for islands. He also graduated from Clark University and Indiana University. The second one is �Β𝑚 Charter or �Β𝑚-𝑦 Charter. He was born in 1875 at Hartford, Ontario. He attended Hartford Village School and Hungersville High School. He also attended McMaster University for 1 year. In 1898, he earned a Bachelor of Art degree, while in 1899, he earned Teaching Diploma at Ontario Normal College. In 1901, he earned the doctorate from the University of Toronto. In 1904, he earned a master's degree and doctorate degree from the University of Chicago. He was an early pioneer in the field of curriculum study and served as professor of education at The Ohio State University and University of Pittsburgh, among others. He was the founding editor of the Journal of Higher Education. The third cluster is Psychological Foundation. I chose Ivan Pavlov and Jean Piaget. Let's have first Ivan Pavlov. Ivan Pavlov or Ivan Petrovich Pavlov was born in 1849 in Ryazan, Russia. He was an eminent Russian psychologist and physiologist who devised the concept of the conditioned reflex. He formulated a conceptual theory highlighting the significance of conditioning and associating human behavior with the nervous system. He was awarded the 1904 Nobel Prize for the Physiology of Medicine for his groundbreaking research on digestive secretions. Then we have Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget was born in Switzerland on August 9, 1896, and he began showing an interest in the natural sciences at a very early age. By age of 11, he had already started his career as a researcher by writing a short paper on an albino sparrow. He continued to study the natural sciences and received his doctorate degree in zoology from the University of the Neuchâtel in 1918. He is a Swiss psychologist and genetic epistemologist. He is most famously known for his theory of cognitive development that look at how children develop intellectually throughout the course of childhood. And lastly, we have the cluster 4 or the social foundation. I chose Emile Durkheim and Alvin Toffler. But first, let's have Emile Durkheim. Emile Durkheim was born on April 15, 1858 at Épinal, France and died November 15, 1917 at Paris. He is a French social scientist who developed a vigorous methodology combining empirical research with sociological theory. He is widely regarded as the founder of the French School of Sociology. On the other hand, Alvin Toffler was born in New York City, where he grew up and spent his early life. He and his little sister are children of Poland migrants. By the age of 7, he was inspired by his uncle and aunt, an editor and poet, to become a writer in the future. After his high school, Alvin Toffler studied English at New York University, where he also obtained his degree. He was honored various times like the Order of Arts and Letter Award. He also received book award for his contributions to management literature provided by the Mackenzie Foundation. My personal insight for this Take Action activity is that, as for me, the purpose of this activity is to inform us that it is essential that we know the background or biographies of people who contributed to the curriculum development because, like curriculum, they also have their own foundations before they reach and achieve the success. Everything has its own foundation because without it or without a solid base underneath, you'll not establish a strong outcome that needed for a lifetime. And to test your understanding with this lesson, here is the self-check and self-reflect. For your self-check, you are about to answer this question. What significant contributions can you recall about this person? Number 1 is Lev Vygotsky. Number 2 is Daniel Goleman. 3 is William Kilpatrick. 4 is Hilda Taba. 5 is Ralph Tyler. Number 6 is John Dewey. 7 is Abraham Maslow. 8 is Carl Roger. 9 is Franklin Babbitt. And number 10 is Alvin Toffler. And for your self-reflect, after discussing this lesson, reflect on the following questions. Number 1, identify which among the foundations of curriculum has influenced what you have learned in school as a college student. Number 2, how will the thinking of Abraham Maslow influence your teaching practice in the future? And lastly, number 3, do you agree with Alvin Toffler? Enjoy answering. This has been Rhea May M. Limpiada from 𝑏𝑠 at Mathematics 3. I hope you are learning. Bye!